All right, so now we're talking about calming the mind, some ways to attend to our thinking, to be present for our loved ones and care for ourselves. So even just listening to you all talk, I know that there are plenty of stressors in your life, and not just caring for your loved one, but there's multiple layers, right? We've had, the pandemic has been, anybody that tells me right now that they're not anxious, I don't believe them, because you cannot hardly in this environment not have at least a smidge of anxiety going on with all that's going on in our world. So when you have that and you add anything else, it can just get to be too much. And one of the things I like to talk about is the fact that when we get too many things going on, our capacity to calm ourselves, our capacity to function, our capacity to even think straight kind of goes away. And so what happens when you guys are in this state of like, I got nothing left?
We shut down.
We shut down. Okay. Shut down happens.
Frustration.
Yeah. Yeah.
Inside and verbal.
Yeah. Oh, Lynn, I can't hear you.
You're muted.
Yep.
Thank you. My dog was snorting here. I can't think straight. I can't focus.
Right.
I'm very forgetful.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Personally, I take it out on my husband. He usually gets in front of it, like, I have a bad day and he gets it. Yeah. Well, and I love, they're using this with kids a lot in school, and it's kind of a new way of talking about our brain. But if you think about your fist representing your brain, and this part of it, your knuckles being your frontal lobe, okay, what happens is this amygdala part, this on the very inside of our brain, that's where that fight, flight, or fold kind of mechanism is within us. And when we feel threatened, which is what happens when you've got COVID and you've got this person you're caring for, and you've got the cat peeing all over the place, and you've got 500 bills you need to sit down and pay, and it's just like boom, 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 and all this, and some one little thing happens, and you flip your lid. Okay, they use this with the kids all the time. It's such a great thing to think about, because when you flip your lid, now to address the fight, flight, or folding, your frontal lobe is not available to you. You can't think straight, like Lynn said. You can't make a decision. And and then what happens is we all act out of our almost like our childlike state impulse kind of thing. That 3-year-old grandbaby, whoo, I see it all the time. It's like all day long happening when I take care of her. And sometimes we just don't have the capacity when we're overwhelmed to be able to calm that thing down. And so it is so absolutely critical that we are aware of when we're flipping our lids. What does it feel like internally, y'all? But y'all ever paid attention to just that little moment before you flip your lid? Like, what does it feel like in your body?
It feels like it's just coming right up, and it comes up quicker than you can shut it down.
Yeah. It does.
Control.
What's that?
Like it builds up and then you lose it, you just lose your self-control.
Right.
And there's that part that says, you're 70, you know better.
Right. And then here, you just hit on a point that is such a big deal that I tell people all the time. When we beat ourselves up that way, all we're doing, you know what we're doing? We're adding more fuel to that fight or flight fire, because now we're a threat. We've just created this, you're not doing it right thing, and so we've just added more reason for us to be agitated. So that's going to be one of our points here in a minute. But So what I want to recommend is watching for when you flip your lid, and even kind of reflecting and thinking about it over the last week. When have you flipped your lid, and what was going on, and what was a clue before you flipped your lid that you might have been able to pay attention to that would have been helpful? Like sometimes it's just that little awareness. I mean, I've caught myself a few times. I'm like, oh, I really want to like say something I had not, and I can catch myself. And so there's usually just that little split second in there that we do have time to do something, but it is about being observant and even kind of reflecting on what we've done before, and kind of going, oh, there was that little, I had that little moment there that I could have done something different, but I kind of just like ignored it because that's not what I wanted to do. But
I think when you're overloaded though, and your brain is functioning in 10 different directions, how do you get control to be able to shut it down so quickly? How do you observe yourself, because you've had 10 things going on and then that last thing just puts you right over the edge?
Well, and that leads to my next point, which is intentionality. Like we have to be really intentional about, first of all, who we want to be, how we want to show up in our world and with our loved ones. Like, how do I want to respond when they are, well, and let me back up just a little bit. And I'll get to your point, Dottie, in just a second.
Sure.
The other thing is to watch for the flip lid of your loved one too. Okay. They're flipping their lids as well. They are not okay in their own skin. They are uncomfortable. They don't like what's going on for them. Can you imagine, like you think your frustration's really high? We have to consider theirs too. And they are flipping their lids all the time. And then if you're flipping your lid too, then what do you got? You got two flip lids and nothing's happening, and
No solution.
Mess, right? And then you screaming at each other and you're like, this is not how I want to be, So being able to recognize when their lid is flipping or getting ready to, and kind of knowing what's going on for them is really helpful too. And even be able to talk about it if they still have the capacity to have the conversations with you about, let's maybe work out a code word or something for when you're just feeling really aggravated, and it's just whatever that word is. It's just called, I'm losing it, or you can just say I'm flipping my lid, or, my lid's about to blow. And it sometimes even just that can help diffuse things, because it's about communicating that. But it is that the next point then of setting your intentions is, how do you want to be? Do you want to be the person who responds calmly? Do you want to be the person who responds with kindness? And if you rewind and you think, okay, when have I been able to do that? Oh, I have been able to do that sometimes. I have actually been able to respond with a calm voice, with that intention and that awareness of what was going on for them. I could recognize that they were upset, and I could be soothing, and I could be comforting, and I could be compassionate. So sometimes it's about when you're not upset, when things are fine, it's about taking a moment, taking some time, and thinking about, how do you want to go about your life? And you may need to have a reset on that every day. Like every morning, it may be about, like, I'm going to set my intentions. This is how I want to be today. Do y'all ever do that? And how well does that help you?
This year I'm watching my tongue. Just giving myself a minute or two to comprehend what's really going on. Because I come from New York, and I'm used to multitasking. So we be fast and furious, and I don't have to be fast and furious anymore. So I have to slow myself down in my thoughts, and really take in what I'm hearing. What is it that I'm actually really hearing
Mhm.
from
Yeah.
everyone? My friends in memory care, and they are not doing things correctly with soft mechanical foods. She wants to stay in bed. She doesn't want to be interactive. She's hurting. She lost a large amount of weight, and they're not really accommodating her wishes. And it's infuriating me. So I have to learn, as a caregiver, I was not a caretaker.
Yeah.
So now I have a different role, and it's really different. And I used to do private care and not facility care, and the rules are really different.
Mhm.
So I'm learning how to curve my tongue and take a minute and breathe.
Yeah, that giving yourself just that little window, right? I see Mike nodding. Yeah.
It's
Yeah, I relate to that. Deciding how I'm going to respond beforehand and even practicing it in my mind.
Yes.
yes.
I was a retail business, and in whatever retail business you're in, at some time you're going to deal with customer complaints, and
Yes.
learned how to do that. And so I actually started applying some of those things to issues with my wife. I mean,
That's
knowing
why.
it's our friend, knowing that it's the disease, and I had to tell myself that about 10 times a day.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But just preparing myself beforehand that this is going to happen
Mhm.
and this is what I should do.
Yeah.
It sounds easier than it is.
That's right. That's
but,
right.
Oh yeah.
I guess I'm smarter than I thought I was, because I was doing what you said, Denise.
You're doing great. Yeah.
But it really was. It was very, very helpful for me.
Mhm.
Working on who I am plus what I do. So,
Good point.
I'm the husband, I'm the caretaker. I've got to be the one that has to stay calm.
Yeah.
A lot of hats.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
But,
is.
but that recognition of I'm the one that has to be calm, because they can't. And that's the other thing, is that we co-regulate with one another. Like y'all even being in group together, and y'all like the shout out of community, it's like that feels good to be around people. We co-regulate with one another, and co-regulate in when somebody's flipped their lid, that's what's called dysregulation. Okay. When we're regulated means we're in charge of our emotions. We're in charge of our tongue. We're in charge of our responses. And so, Mike, I think what you recognized really probably early on was, if I'm calm, she's calm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was not calm at first.
No, I'm sure you were scared. I mean, had to be scary.
Much as I empathized and felt sorry for her, I mean, I was dealing with my own stuff. So I was on the edge. I was half flipped before it happened,
Yeah. Yep.
If I may, you mentioned, Denise, trying to see how our loved one feels or what he or she is dealing with. And in my husband's case, it's pain. And I've mentioned this before. And it took me 2 years to figure out that when he got all snippy and picky, and I couldn't do anything right. And I'm not one that really looks for approval, because I know I'm right. Now, if you can't see it, that's your problem. But it's hard to take, and I figured out that when he got that way, all picky and not very agreeable, is when he could not cope with this tremendous pain.
Yeah.
So to walk a foot in their shoes, remember, they cannot get away from this condition, this
Right.
disability. They cannot walk away from the frustration. We can, but they cannot. And especially with cognitive issues, they don't have the capacity when they reach a certain point. And in my husband's case, with the pain, I cannot even imagine what it's like to be in so much pain for 14 years. So it was easier for me to find compassion and not to just, because after all, I'm the wife and I can snap back, but I chose not to. And it was not easy. It took me several months to, once I figured that out, to hold my tongue, as Dottie said. But we can do it.
Yeah.
We can do it, but it does take some work on our part to
Takes
kind of program ourselves. But all it needs is for us to decide to do it, and we will do it.
Yes.
And
And
but like I said, put yourself in their shoes. And when things get really, really, really frustrating, that is when I remind myself, he cannot walk away from the situation. He's stuck.
Yes.
So like Mike said, it is part of my role as a family caregiver, not the wife, not anybody else, but as a family caregiver, which we are, is part of that is to find a way to manage it. That situation at the moment.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and
it's like when we children, and my mom used to say, the baby's crying and screaming, nothing you can do is soothing. You need to take a minute, walk away, give yourself five minutes, and then come back and regroup. It's very similar. It's just that we forget to do the walk away.
Yeah.
We're looking for a quick solution.
Right.
There is no quick solution in this life.
No, there's not.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I've got in here number 3 is calming skills, and we can talk about those in a minute. But I want to jump to number 4, which is interpretation, because that's what this is about, right? Like Lynn, when you shifted your interpretation of your husband's snippiness from he's mad at me to he's in pain, it made all the difference in the world, right? And it's really important that we watch how we interpret what's going on, and we have to, that's where, again, we have to watch what we're thinking about ourselves, or, if we're judging ourselves and saying like Emery mentioned earlier, like I'm not being, like I should know better, like I'm 70 years old, I should be able to do this, right? That's an interpretation that you're supposed to have your act together and understand all this and get it all. No, man, this is hard work. It's okay for you to be self-compassionate and say, man, this is hard today. I'm having a rough go. And I will take a minute for myself when I have an opportunity, but I do have to get through this next couple of minutes. But this is just acknowledging, like, this is hard. And that she is not doing this thing to me. She is having an experience, but she's not doing this to me. She's doing this because her lid is flipped and she doesn't have any capacity to calm herself. Being able to interpret it differently makes a huge difference. I didn't know where to drop the calming skills thing in here. Anyway, let me go ahead and address that. And that is, I uploaded the PDF, and like I said, Lynn can probably email it out. I am a huge proponent of making sure that you have at least 3 good calming skills that you like. And it is the deep breathing, but sometimes you need a little bit more than that. Sometimes that doesn't cut it. On the old count to 10, it really does work. That's that space thing you're talking about, right, Dottie? It's like, I need a little space. Sometimes all you get is to count to 10. Sometimes all you get is 3 deep breaths. Sometimes you only get 1 deep breath. That may be enough, because when we're anxious and upset, we're breathing out of the top of our lungs and we're not getting sufficient oxygen. And again, if we're not getting good oxygen, what's happening to our brain? It's not working too well. And so it's helping the lid be flipped. So calming skills are absolutely critical. One of my very favorite ones is one that it's labeled progressive muscle relaxation in my list. And that is where when you take a big breath, you tighten up everything and like even your knuckles, even your toes, and then you let it out and you relax. So let's do that 3 times. I want you just to see what that's like. Okay, so we're gonna take a big breath in and tighten everything up. If that hurts, only tighten something like your hands or your toes, okay? And then let the breath out. So 1, 2, 3, breath in, tighten. Hold 2, 3, let it out 2, 3. And when you let it out, like let's try to let your muscles relax just as much as you possibly can. Do it one more time. Big breath in, tighten everything up. Hold it 2, 3, and then let it out and try to like become a wet noodle. Okay. What do you notice when you do that?
You get more relaxed.
Relaxed.
I get
Yeah.
a headache, which is that if you're
Oh.
overstressed, is that
You may be a little overstressed and you're tightening some things that were already probably really tight because we carry a lot of tension in our neck. And then if you tightened any of your shoulders and neck when you did that, it probably like hurt.
yeah, it
So
was not
sometimes-
comfortable.
So sometimes we have to find what works for us. And sometimes if we already are carrying a ton of tension, getting any tighter is not even an option. And so sometimes we might just need to do something like just squeeze our hands or squeeze our feet or just even like your glutes, like you're doing an exercise or something. Sometimes it's just about doing a different body part and not doing the whole body. You may need, because if you've got it, but that may release some of the tension that you're having somewhere else. So if it hurts anywhere, yeah, don't tighten everything. Find some body parts that you can tighten that are not that tight. But that's probably a pretty good sign that you're pretty tense these days, though. As is everybody. All right. So the next thing is once we have, if we can, well, the thing about calming skills, I recommend you do these throughout your day. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Every time you brush your teeth. Like, and experiment. Like I said, there's a whole list. I add to them all the time because I keep finding new ones that I like. And if we practice them on a regular basis, our tension level will go down. It will, because our body is holding all that tension. And if we don't allow our body to relax and soften, we're going to be carrying all that tension around. And then our lid is already halfway flipped. We're walking around like this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to breathe well, in doing some meditation, doing whatever, it's finding those moments you have where you can be in as relaxed a state as possible. And I don't mean medicated with
Decompress.
3 beers, I mean truly relaxed, as in I feel good in my body right now, or I'm feeling comfortable in my body right now. When you can be in that state at least for a couple of minutes every day, it'll make a big difference. And I would recommend doing some of these exercises with your loved one too. Yeah, Emery.
One, or actually it's 2 different times in the day that get me is, so I love Texas sky. There's something about the sky here. When I walk outside and just for a moment, take a deep breath and look up at whether it's the stars or the sun, or whether it's overcast and kind of heavy, there's something that kind of just gets my joy back to where it needs to be.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great time to take that big deep breath, right? And
Yeah.
I do want to ask a question though.
mhm.
This is associated when you've experienced grief in a really traumatic way, you find that it comes in unexpected waves. and it just grabs a hold of you. And sometimes it's not very convenient.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm. It's a good time to step outside. Sometimes it's a good time to just go ahead and take a good big breath. It's also a
Yeah.
good time to be very gentle with yourself and compassionate with yourself, and don't judge that wave of grief. Just like it's about acknowledging it and watching it come and go, because emotions do, they come and go. They come in these waves, and
Yeah.
but yeah. And that when you're having a real struggle with grief, that breath and reminding yourself about what you can be grateful for, and what you can be grateful for about even your past with your loved one, can
Mhm.
be just that little thing to help you crest that wave. Yeah. No.
Emery, I've been there, all right, am there at time to time, and man, that's hard. But one of the things that I've learned is don't throttle the grief. I mean, I know it sometimes you have to manage it some way, but sometimes when I'm alone and I don't know what sparks it, maybe I see something on TV or have a thought, and being a typical guy, not very emotional, not very comfortable with my emotions, I've really learned to just let the grief come, not bottle it up. I don't know if
Yeah.
that helps. I understand that sometimes it's not appropriate, but when you can, just let it come, let the wave come, and it'll wash over you. And a little while later, like Denise said, especially if you can start looking at some of the past good things, that over time that helps.
Yeah. I come from the Pacific Ocean and spent most of my time on Monterey Bay.
Oh, that's
As a-
beautiful. Yeah.
As a little boy, you learn, because I didn't have the money for a surfboard, I learned how to body surf. And there's an element of the wave where it just slams you down to the sand and it's taking
Been
you
there.
over. Then the other aspect is to ride the crest of the wave. And sometimes it just seems like a tsunami. There's just not any end of it. And it's bigger than anything you can do. And you really feel like you're just, gasping for air. That visual really helps me. My son lives in Carlsbad, and he's a service manager, and he sneaks away from work and goes to surf when it's good. And I live vicariously at this point, because most of the joy that I have is coming from other people. 46 years married, and then to have this relationship go this way, it stinks.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I get it, Emery. And I have mentioned before that being a family caregiver for a spouse is very different from being a caregiver for anyone else.
That's right.
Usually you choose the person that you marry or your partner in life, and you say for life. And we have certain expectations, dreams that we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Well, my husband was 48 when he got sick, and he's been in bed 14 years. So talk about your plans. You know what? I didn't even think of any plans. Because immediately when he got that diagnosis and a year later he was bedridden, what's there to plan for, really? And it might sound like a terrible attitude, but it's not. It's realistic.
Mhm.
We'll never take a walk in the park. We will never go back to Europe. We will never do all those things. But I have a lot of wonderful experiences on which to rely, but I've never been to Paris, and I'm going to get to Paris somehow. Okay. Somehow, that's my only dream,
YouTube.
but I don't think about it. Yeah. I don't think about it. I just, because I'm a realist, but I'm actually a very positive person. So, but there's a sense of definitely grief, loss. There's a lot I will never do, but I've never dwelled on it, you know, and that I think actually has been very helpful for me, because I'm not missing or grieving over something, a future that I'm not going to have, because I haven't thought about it, you know, so it just hasn't occurred to me. So I accepted our what was coming when my husband was diagnosed, and I knew that it was just going to go downhill, you know, which is kind of like a dementia of the body, because his body is just not working properly. And, you know, so anyway, it's a form of grief, I believe. And it's just really hard. What's worked for me, I've been married 40 years. And like you said, it's kind of rotten, you know, but I still don't look at it that way. My mission has become to continue to be a wife for him, and to just make him as comfortable, including emotions, which is, I think, one of the harder parts to be a cheerleader. Sometimes you don't feel like a cheerleader. Sometimes we need a cheerleader. And it can be very lonely, because there is no other husband and there is no other wife, right? So, but I somehow, I don't know, muddle through it, I guess, you know, and accept and find other ways. They're not the same. You cannot replace a spouse. Not in my opinion, period. Okay, you can't. But so I look for other ways to find joy in my life. I know it's not the same. It just isn't. But they take up my time, my focus, my heart. Like you said, stepping outside and looking at the sky. I'm always looking at the sky. This is amazing. My husband's from Maine. They have amazing skies over there too. I'm like, wow. And my home is Maryland, and I've lived in Florida. So, I mean, they're all different. But that is something that you take in. And for the 5 seconds or half an hour that you're out there looking, enjoying, loving that sky, you're not grieving. And that is like therapy for the heart, for the mind, for the soul. So I say, do it. I know Dura knows I take my sanity walks. It's too cold right now. I can't handle this cold. But 2-hour walk, I tell my secretary back in the days of the 60s and all those shows, you know, hold all calls, all texts, all emails, put on reality on hold, because this is my sanity walk, where it's my mental floss, that we call it here, right? It's a way to just be alone with nature, with God, with love, with whatever, and to remember that we are human. And it's a way to be kind to yourself too, because you matter and deserve a little space, you know? So anyway, I'm gonna be quiet.
I want to jump in on something that's funny. That sanity walk was out of my realm. I couldn't do it for quite a while because I never knew when I would be needed. And so I had to stay close because there just was nobody else. This is absolutely sick, but funny. I love Depends.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because now I get a break. Yeah, maybe I'll have to deal with a little cleanup, but I can actually walk out the door. She's in her lift chair. I can do something and not feel like as soon as I get to my furthest place away, that's when she's going to need me. So I keep everything really close. There's some places that I need to just walk to and I need to just be free to get there. And it is funny how something as simple as depends can make that a possibility.
You know what? It's absolutely right. And I'll have you know that I know somebody who drove to Florida. She's actually a caregiver, and but for her mother here, but she decided that she wanted to get to Florida really fast. Do you know that she wore Depend? So she had to stop.
Well, I drove from Colorado.
And I'm like, you are a clever woman. So you know what? And I think the beauty of that, Emery, is that you figure out a way to manage your
Yeah.
situation. Nobody gets hurt, nobody gets neglected,
Yes.
and you gain something.
You know what
I
else
have-
I like about that is finding gratitude in even the small things. Because when you
Right.
said that, you said that with such an essence of gratitude that's important too.
Yes.
True.
Yes.
Yeah, not just another expense that we have, because at this stage in life, a lot of our income goes to her care. And it's, okay, well, I can look at it that way, or I can also look at the fact that that gives some freedom that we
Yeah.
just wouldn't have any other way. So,
Yeah, that's exactly. And actually, I was talking about our dog using diapers, and that would give me freedom because, and it's like he just manages to wet outside the pads. So not only have I wasted pads, but I still have to clean the floor. That's not fair. But you know what? Like Emery, you're saying, and it's beautiful. And I see Sharon is smiling, and everybody's smiling. It's like, if nothing else, it's kind of rotten, but you know what? We can laugh about it.
Yes.
well, we're in this club that none of us wanted to be a part of.
Exactly.
None of us said, "Oh, I'm signing up now. I want to be a part of it." But we're here.
Yeah. And here we are. It is, part of our destiny, but we're going to figure out a way to move forward.
Yeah.
So, all right.
I one more thing I have to say, Michael, your face is so important to me, because I've been around women and understand their ability to be nurturers and caregivers and all. And so there's this bar that's set that, well, women just do it. So just be like a woman and you'll be fine with that. Well, sorry, I don't have that skill. It is not there. So to see another man is in this environment, it's like, somebody knows my feelings.
Exactly. And actually, we do have another regular. He's not here. And Mike, I believe Dawn, whose wife, she is in a memory care facility and a community. And so he understands too. And there's some other gentlemen. We will be starting actually a dementia focused support group, because this welcomes everyone, but back to Wednesdays, the first Wednesdays, Mike, I know you are familiar with those, starting, I think it's next week, it's February already, on the 2nd, and we had other gentlemen over there as well.
Cool.
So I will send out the information and link for that one over the weekend. But if you want to continue conversations, it would be another place to meet. I actually have another gentleman who called yesterday who will be attending the Wednesday one next week. Okay, so hang in there, Emery. All right, I'm going to really be quiet now.
Well, and what I love about you guys communicating and talking, like you're getting to share some of these emotions and these feelings and experiences, and it's such a great place to do that. And sometimes I think when you're a caregiver, you're in isolation, and that's what the pandemic has just exacerbated that. And you don't have this outlet. And so bravo to everybody that's here. And I know other people will get an opportunity to watch this, and that'll be great. But it's so important to be able to talk and communicate what's going on. And the next thing is communicating assertively. When we communicate assertively, we use I feel statements. Here's the trick. When you say, I feel like blah, 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 that is not a feeling. That is a thought. You want to use an emotion word. And I get on people all the time. There are all these great little, I've got a great little diagram I can send out on emotion words.
Mm-hmm.
Emotion words are things like sad, upset, anxious, or disappointed. I mean, there's a lot of disappointment. It could even be things like, I'm feeling really more confident about things. You know, like I feel confident I can leave my wife for just a little bit, go take a walk. You know, it's about using these words and using them more frequently so that we can communicate to our loved one and to our support system what's going on with us without the expectation that anybody else is going to fix it or anything, but just so that you can feel like you're being heard. And nobody knows what you're feeling or experiencing unless you tell them. And so it's really important to use I feel statements. I feel really disappointed that I, can't be gone for more than an hour, or I feel very frustrated about that. Go ahead and say that, label it. That in and of itself can be so helpful, just like y'all's conversation here. It can just be so helpful to use those feeling words and describe what's happening, what's going on internally for you. The other thing with communication, I put in here, there's a great little thing that's out there. It says, before you say or do anything, ask yourself. And I've added the do, because sometimes we do things. I'm a pot slammer. When my kids were young and I would get frustrated, man, if it was noisy in the kitchen, everybody was like, "Ooh, I'm not going in there. Mama's mad," So it's also doing. So the thing is to ask yourself, does this need to be said or done? Does it need to be said? How helpful is it for you to say, I'm having to change your depends again? Like, what's that going to do? For you, all it's going to do is add frustration, right? There's no benefit there. Does it need to be said or done? Does this need to be said or done by me? Are you the one that needs to communicate this? Dottie, like you're the one that's involved in taking care of your, a friend. And so a lot of times you feel like, yeah, it has to be me, but maybe sometimes, I don't know how much your friend can speak up for herself too.
Well, she can't. That's the frustrating part is,
she's at that point where she can't. Okay.
When she wants to just stay in bed,
mm-hmm.
When they go, "Oh, we're going to get you up today. Let's go. We're going to breakfast." And she goes, "Stay in bed, stay in bed." They're ignoring her. And it gets me really pissed because I'm like, hey, did you hear her? Because she's using her words to the best of her ability.
Right.
Or if you say, are you in pain? That could be so wide.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I say, are your knees hurting you today? Is it your hand that's hurting today? Is it, are you hungry or thirsty for something cold, hot? Use different words, because her stroke took her verbal communication. So, but she will say, "Oh, yes, I want something cold," or after you already initiated it.
Yeah, you kind of give her the words and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, giving her choices other than, are you thirsty?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's frustrating that, when you're in a facility, you expect people to be like you are, because I've been a caregiver for 20 years. And I don't know how come they're not, how come they're not training them to be a little more selective with when they're communicating with someone with dementia or Alzheimer's.
Unfortunately, I think my experience has been they just need warm bodies filling those roles, and the training is, not nearly as adequate as we would all like for it to be, which is unfortunate in some places.
And yeah,
Some places we're really good about the training.
yeah.
But you guys all know that time when sometimes you don't need to be the one to say something, that it needs to be somebody else to say it. Like maybe it's not your place or your role or whatever. I know that as caregivers, though, this is probably more of a rare thing for you to consider when you're trying to communicate something, because you really are the one who has to speak up for your loved one.
Trying not to.
Yeah. The next little tip is does this need to be said or done by me now? Like maybe it needs to be said, but maybe the timing's not great. Like, if somebody is really upset with you, one of your loved one's really upset right now, well, maybe this isn't the time to try to get them to go do something. Like we got to go, we've got to get in the car, and they're already like their lids already flipped. And you're like, okay, we gotta roll this back a little bit and calm things down, and then we'll talk about getting in the car. Remember, you were like laughing.
I've got to jump in here this morning. So the trigger for us is that thirst becomes an ongoing, ridiculous game. Water has to be available everywhere. We have a 2.5-year-old grandson. You know what he likes water for? Dump it out. So then there's the process of every water bottle sold today seems like they're super light plastic, and the cap is very hard for my wife to get open.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't want one by the bed. We're in the bathroom. You just took a drink. We're going to be fine. That flipped my lid. It's like, gosh, you got to have water everywhere. Come on. You're not in the Sahara. You're not going to die of thirst. But that's her frame of reference, and it's one of her comfort things. Well, it didn't get better this morning when we got up, and today we have to take her to a pain management doctor in a little bit, and she needs a shower, and they ain't no way I'm going to take that shower with her today. It's just not going to happen. Fortunately, my daughter is here, and she stepped up and she took it. But most of the time, I have to know that, the 3-inch threshold is going to panic her. The slippery surface is going to freak her out, all of that. And you see all of this play out in your mind before you get there.
Yeah.
And it's not, fear is sometimes false evidence appearing real, but sometimes it's what's going to happen, and you're afraid to have to go into that situation.
Right.
So I had deferred it for several days, knowing she, and then my daughter, that this is why I brought it up. Does this need to be said by me? So she says, today you're getting a shower. We smell you. If I said that, oh my gosh. You just lit off.
Say that. Yeah, that's wise. Let the dog do that.
She's young, and she's got a really good sense of smell, and so she picks up on that, and my wife understands that better than if I would say it.
Right. And maybe she's a little more compliant with your daughter to go get a shower than she is with you too.
Oh, so, my daughter is type A, and it's like, it's going to be done now. This is my house. You're going to do this now. Yes, dear.
Well, it's good you got that backup, man.
It was necessary today, and it's funny because all of these are the calming skills that I've learned, that if I can be heard by somebody. Last thing, I have to go and take care of this appointment, but I wanted to share something. One thing that you're doing, Denise, that is so important. I have a dear friend who is an RN her whole life. Her mother has MS. Her father is superhero. Her father is 85 years old and carries this woman upstairs to put her in bed. And now they have the device to do it, and the bed is downstairs. But he's risen to that level. And I'm like, please don't compare me with him. I don't know anything about his life. All you've told me is that he loves his wife in this expressive way. Well, I love my wife too, but ain't no way I'm going to take a 230-pound woman, anywhere, much less upstairs. And it was so wonderful when we found out, if the slips and falls with Parkinson's, they haven't been very much. In fact, we haven't had a slip and fall in Texas that wasn't just really easy to take care of. The fire department has to be the one to come, and here's these big hunks. Oh my goodness, talk about not having to be the one. When she
Uh-huh.
looks at these 3 or 4 guys that they're gonna come in, assess it, make sure they don't hurt her, get her up and go. And I'm like out of the picture.
Uh-huh.
And then they're gone. They're just like, hit, do, goodbye. And I like, could we have that for every situation in our life? I want that. And the other thing I want is I want the soundtrack playing in our life. You know how the movie has the soundtrack and it makes the most lousy situation so, ethereal and wonderful? Why
Right.
can't we have a soundtrack?
I don't know. You need to find yours. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So you guys, I'm going to listen to the rest of this, but I have to go and get ready. And thank you so much for providing this. This has been outstanding.
Thank you for everything that you shared with us today. It was also outstanding. And I love the fact that we do have representation from men as well as women. And I didn't even recognize that until you brought that up, but how nice this is for everybody. So thank you both. Well, all of you for joining, but yes, for the male representation.
Gentlemen. Yeah. And if I may be so bold as to suggest, since you, Emery, I believe you're the one, who put community down, is perhaps Mike and Emery might want to talk.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
with your permission, if you are okay with
Please.
that, I can email both of you and exchange your email, because I do not share emails without permission.
Yeah. Last thing I just want to share, and this is just, because this is going to help fuel. I'm at that stage where I can still, on a good day, take care of my wife. On the bad days where she's in la la land and I don't have anything left and I haven't slept, that's where I find my lack, is when I don't sleep. Oh my goodness, there's something that just is not in me. I can go without food, but don't make me go without sleep. And
No.
so I become
Brain's
a
not
different
working.
rascal. Yeah.
Mhm.
What's that?
Your brain's not working. You have to sleep. Sleep renews your brain.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it's funny because sleep seems to renew me more than food does. I
Mhm.
haven't eaten yet today.
Oh,
And so it's like, it's just not necessary for me, but
Yeah.
sleep is super necessary. And of course it gets interrupted a lot. So
Yeah.
in the next 2 months, I have to get the next situation. We're moving out of our daughter's home. And I thought it was just going to be a senior's living, and that's not going to work. I'm going to have to go into some kind of, I don't know what it's going to be yet. So we're in that process, but having that looming over your head clutters up, all the, it's like the bill paying, it clutters up. What am I supposed to do when all this just keeps piling up?
Yes.
And then I used to call it pickup sticks. You know how
Uh-huh.
you'd pick up a
Yeah.
stick and you couldn't pick up any one stick because they were underneath something else.
Yeah.
It's so much like that with caregiving.
Mhm.
Marie, I would love to set up a private consultation to discuss your situation if you would
Okay.
like. Yeah, because I think Joy and I can come up with several suggestions. I've thought of
Okay.
things as you spoke. And of
Okay.
course, that goes for everybody. But I would encourage you. So I'll email you later. Okay.
Great.
And
Great.
Emery and Michael, do y'all want me to text you both each other's contact information? Like y'all can reach out to each other with each other's number? Or is that something y'all
Yeah.
both want?
Sure.
Yes, for sure.
Okay, I have both of y'all's numbers, so I'll text it to you, to each of you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Wonderful. All right. Well,
You're
Emily,
awesome. I love you.
lovely to meet you. I'm so glad you're here. Okay. And
Hey.
keep smiling.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good
Bye.
for you. Okay, so the next tip is, will I regret not saying or doing this? Okay, sometimes we actually need to say something. Sometimes we hesitate to say things, and we might be afraid of blowing the situation up, right? We might be afraid that we're going to upset someone. But sometimes if we realize, oh, if I don't say this, that's actually going to create more problems. I might regret that down the road. So those tips are there just to kind of help you figure out, like, is it, what things do I need to really talk about? Is it necessary for me to do it or not? And number 6 is watch how we talk to ourselves about ourselves. This is what I mentioned earlier. We've got to use a little bit of self-compassion in the way we talk to ourselves, because if we beat ourselves up, we're flipping our lid again. It's like being attacked, and then because we are attacking ourselves. And if we attack ourselves, then we are feeling under threat. And if we're feeling under threat, our lid's going to flip. And that means things like, the way we talk to ourselves, especially in this kind of realm, is I didn't do that right, and I lost my cool, and I shouted at her, and how dare I do that? I shouldn't be that way. Da, da, da. Especially if you use the word should. That's a pretty good clue that you're being so harsh with yourself that it is detrimental. It's backfiring. It's doing the opposite of what you want it to do. Instead, if you can use a little self-compassion, go, man, that was a rough day today. I love something called self-distancing. It's a great little tool to use when you are especially if you get yourself caught in a loop that you can't get out of, and you're judging yourself and you're being really harsh with yourself. I had a real silly little thing that happened a couple of years ago, pre-COVID. Cousin came into town. We went out to dinner somewhere. I don't go out to eat very often. I just don't. There are reasons for that. But anyway, we don't go out to eat very often. And I thought, oh, I'm going to take this cousin to this, well-known popular restaurant. Well, we got there. It was completely crazy. We got indoors and we could not hear each other talk at the tables. The food wasn't all that great. It was just like, it just didn't turn out the way I wanted it to turn out. And it was August, and it was 104 out. So it was just miserable to even stand around outside and talk. So I could not sleep that night because I was beating myself up. What did I do? Why did I pick that place? Just this whole menagerie of thoughts that were just going on. And I got up the next morning like, why am I doing this? And I got in the car and I thought, I'm going to try that self-distancing stuff. And I said to myself, I said out loud in the car, Denise did not know what she was getting herself into with the restaurant. Denise didn't know it was going to be noisy. Denise didn't know the food wasn't going to be that great. She hasn't been to that restaurant in years. Denise, I mean, I just went on and on with 2 or 3 things. Like one of them was, and Denise was just trying to show off that she knew about. She was like a good Austinite, that she knew all the hot places in Austin to go to. And I laughed at myself, and I did not think about it again. I tell this story all the time, and I don't think about it all in between. I don't. It went away. I slept the next night. I was fine. I tell people to use this all the time in my practice. We do it in sessions sometimes, and they'll do it with me. And it's amazing. You use that as if somebody else is talking about you, as if someone else is having a conversation about you. You use your own name, and if you do it out loud, it's even better. And so I have seen that for people, it helps shift you out of that ruminating and of that self-torture that we can get ourselves into. Anyway, there's a Austin social worker named Kristen Neff. She's at UT, and her whole thing is on self-compassion. And she's got videos on YouTube you can watch. I'd highly recommend her. It's Kristen with all I's and a K, Kristen Neff, Neff. And she's got great self-compassion stuff and she's got a website that's got self-compassion exercises. I am a big fan of her work because when we can speak kindly and gently to ourselves, our brain can stay online a whole lot easier. We can stay engaged. We can be kinder and gentler with our loved ones too. And I know a lot of us in our past don't even know what that looks like. We may have had family members that beat the snot out of us too. And so we don't know any different. We've just have those kind of patterns that we've never been able to break out of. And some of us feel like we don't even deserve to talk to ourselves nicely. Well, let me just tell you, you're not helping yourself. It's just, and so it's one of my big things that I push is being self-compassionate in your self-talk. And when you can do that, it makes a humongous difference. And one of the things to think of when you're trying the self-compassion is, what would a good friend tell me? What would this the people in my caregiving group tell me? What would they say about this situation? Would they be kind and compassionate about it and go, oh yeah, been there, done that. Totally understand why you flipped your lid on that one. Would someone else say that to me? Well, yeah, especially in this group, you'll definitely get the backup on that. And I know that in other situations, you might feel as though other people might judge you, but you guys are in this space, you will not, I know you won't feel that. So utilize this group as much as you can.
That's what it's for.
That's what it's for, right? Giving you that uplift and going, yes, been there. I'm familiar with that. I totally understand what you're going through. And so my last tip here is watch the blaming trap. I hear from caregivers all the time that I work with that there are other family members that won't engage, for whatever reason. And they get into the blaming trap, and then they're mad at this other loved one that they're not helping them out. So if they're not beating themselves up, they're beating somebody else up, even in their head, right? Like, I can't get my sister to get involved in this thing, and why can't she help me out? And I'm all alone in this, and she won't do anything. And when we get caught in that, that's as bad as beating ourselves up too, because it's all it's doing is creating all that negative tension. And we have to recognize that there are some people in our world, or some of our support system is not up to the task. They have had their own relationship with that person. I see this primarily with kids, taking care of their parents. Just because you all grew up in the same household doesn't mean what that relationship was like for that adult child with that parent. They had a different relationship than you might have. And I know I'm not, nobody in this group has this situation going on, but just for people who might listen to this, just recognizing that maybe your brother had a different experience with mom than you did. Maybe your brother doesn't feel real comfortable, being that intimate with mom for some reason, for a lot of reasons. Could just be, he's just a real private guy, and it freaks him out. And so maybe that's why brother's not helping you out in this situation. And so being able to be a little bit conscientious and then use a little compassion towards that other person, of recognizing why they're having a struggle, being there in that moment and helping you, can help a lot and help stop the blaming game, because that blaming game just is not going to be of value or help to anybody involved. And it's just it's not going to be helpful for any of the relationships for the long term. So I really recommend that being able to redirect that as much as you possibly can, and be able to recognize that they got their own stuff, and maybe they're being selfish. I don't know. It's a possibility, but maybe they've got some reasons about why they're not interacting and engaging either. So that's my spiel. That's what I had for you. The tips I came up with that I thought might be most helpful for everybody. Y'all have any questions or other comments? Or you guys, I know with this caregiving group, you guys all talk about self-care and making sure you make time for yourself, and all those other kinds of things. I was trying to touch on some other stuff that maybe could be of benefit to you.
Oh, I think it was great. Thank you so much, Denise. I would love to hear more from you at a future
Hey,
talk this year, and maybe at Mount Olive as well on a Wednesday. So we'll talk later about that. But I found everything you said so helpful, so useful, and great. And I also love that you have a sense of humor, because that goes a long way. It's very hard to find it in caregiving sometimes, but that is actually one of the ways that we cope with our caregiving situation, is through humor. We've heard all sorts of bad jokes that always come from my husband in this family, so that's what we know, but even he, I mean, he can laugh at himself.
Yeah.
He's always done that, and then he said, I can say that because I'm disabled.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, okay. So he's also Jewish, so there's a lot of humorous things, that he can talk about, because, well, I can say that I'm Jewish. So, but that is seriously one of the ways that helps us to cope, even when things are really, really rough.
Yeah.
Like today, and he doesn't mind me talking about the caregiving, but he said, when you can, come in, because he uses 3 urinals to save him from getting up to the bathroom, which is about 8 or 10 feet away, because he's a fall risk and he can get dizzy and has fallen. So so this is part of like Emery said, self-sufficiency. In his case, he used the depends. In our cases, I leave 3 urinals there, so I don't have to be going back and forth. So this morning I get a text from him, and because we sleep in different rooms, and he said, I had a disaster, like a disaster. Please come in when you can. And I cleaned up as much as I could, but I'm like, okay, it was a disaster. So, but I mean, what else are you going to do?
Right.
You could be angry, you could cry, but why? So it really does go a long way. And sometimes when things are really, really bad, that is when I step back. I have learned to distance myself from the situation. And it is so ridiculous that the only other thing I can think of, the only sane thing I can think of, is to laugh.
Yes.
This doesn't happen in real life, but it happens in caregiving.
Yeah.
It's true. So anyway.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. So I was going to actually, if nobody else has anything else to add, thank you so much, Denise, for your time and for all your great tips.
Very
and
good.
information.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah,
You're
and we will be sharing this on YouTube and via email. And please keep sharing it, because it's about, just supporting each other, helping each other. But thank you again. Now I'd like to, open up the floor to share. We have a little bit of time left.
And
But
I was gonna
anyway,
say,
thank you again.
and Denise did put that PDF for calming skills in the chat. If y'all don't have the ability to save it to your computer, I've saved it to mine, and we can email that out to.
Yes. Thank you,
everyone.
Dora. And I did email it is an attachment in the invitation that has the link to join us today.
Awesome.
The PDF is Calming the Mind is included. So hopefully you receive attachments. If not, we'll send it out again.
Yeah.
All right.
And y'all don't hesitate to
I hope
if you know someone who needs some help. I do have some room in my practice, so.
Yeah, that's the other thing I was just thinking of. Denise, would you mind putting in your name and contact information? Because you never know when you might need a conversation with Denise.
yes.
Okay. So that way everybody can have it. And I will also include it in the email. I usually send out an email after our meetings. So I'll send it out within the next week.
I just sent my email address and my phone number.
Fabulous. All right. Thank
There
you
you go.
so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah. And I love your hair. I hope that
Yeah.
one day my hair's like that. So.
I inherited mine from grandma, so.
Oh, really? No, mine is in there under the top layer. My
Yeah.
brother and sister don't have any gray
Oh,
hairs.
How about that?
Like I got theirs, I guess, you know, so, but I think it's beautiful.
Much for the invite.
All right, of
Thank
course. You're
you.
welcome. Thank you for your time.
Bye.
Thanks, Denise.
All right, bye-bye. All right, so we can stop the recording.
All right.